So in this video, we cover a wide range of topics and answer questions from you, the community. Specifically, we go over the PayPal debit card and how it can really supercharge your setup if you're a cashback person. We also help a viewer make a decision between getting a Chase Sapphire Reserve or a Capital One Venture X based on his current setup. And so with all those topics in mind, there's a lot to cover. So let's just jump right in. The next question is from Saranya R. And so he also is a previous contributor to the live stream where we talked over his setup. Basically, his question, I think goes back in October, where he asked a question about, should I continue going for welcome offer cards or not? Because at that point, I believe he was Chase 1424. And I just told him to, calm down. It's okay. I think at this point, it may be helpful to kind of cool it off a little bit and go ahead and create a core credit card setup for yourself so you can have something to fall back on when you're not really working on all these welcome offers at one time. So that was a background to that. And look who it is. It's Saranya Roy. He's here. He says, hello all, which is excellent. Good to see you. And so we're going to answer your question live on the screen here. He says, after your previous much needed bashing, which is, I don't say it was bashing, it was just more of a constructive criticism, I finally could put some time to build the core setup. So his setup is here. We'll kind of go over that in a moment on the next slide. His questions are, why PayPal debit not so popular? It helps to be in spending range, balancing the apparently higher tendency to meet the welcome offer spending. And so, we'll go over that in 1 second. And then also the second question is, how can a family of 4 with 2 adults and 2 kids benefit from the airline companion certificates? He researched online, unsure about the feasibility of using 2 certificates in one booking, or do I need to book 2 reservations separately? So there are a number of different certificates. There's the Southwest Companion Pass, which I know for sure you have to book it 2 different itineraries because you can't have 2 companion passes on one account. There's also the Alaska one, and there's also the Delta one. I don't have familiarity with the Alaska or Delta, other than to say that I'm pretty sure that the companion certificates are attached to your Mileage Plus number or your SkyMiles number. And so it is probably likely that you have to book 2 reservations to use the companion certificates, and you can't do it on one itinerary. That would be my guess. But if those of you who have done this before know, leave it down in the comments below so that Saranya has the answer to that particular question. But going back to the first question, let's first look at his setup. So his setup, again, is the PayPal Mastercard ×2, Capital One Venture X, the US Bank Connect card, the Built card, the US Bank Smartly card, and the Bonvoy Brilliant card. And if we look at what actually he's spending money on, this is what's going on. He's using the PayPal Debit Mastercard, which, by the way, is a great card that gives you a 5% category you choose each month for up to $1,000 in spend, which is actually pretty phenomenal for a debit card. And so he uses 5% restaurants on one of them, 5% groceries on the second one. He uses travel for Capital One, which is mostly through the Capital One travel portal. I believe Capital One 10X is hotels, vacation rentals, and rental cars with 5X miles on flights. He also gets 4X on travel for the US Bank Altitude Connect card. 1X on rent. I assume it's actually the 4% you have on the Smartly card. I'm not sure, but I think that's what you're alluding to. And then you have the Brilliant card right now for the welcome offer, which is on the side at this point. And so I wanted to kind of go into the actual question about the PayPal debit card, which I think is actually a phenomenal card that I actually have been experimenting too over the past couple of months. And so it's a debit card that's easy to open. There's no credit check or anything like that because it's a debit account. And basically you can just load money onto the debit account and spend and get 5% cash back on your selected category. And it's basically twice as high as the Citi Custom Cash's limit. It's at $1,000 instead of $500. And so I think that's pretty great. There's been some videos on it. I'm just going to talk about the one I saw by Mr. Daniel Sparks, who's another credit card YouTuber, by the way. So check him out if you haven't already. But he did this video about the PayPal Mastercard where he actually went to Target, Walmart, and Costco and had this card set to the grocery category. And each one of those places actually coded grocery for 5%, which is incredible. And some of you may be thinking, well, Costco only accepts Visa. How did he use the PayPal Mastercard for that? Well, because it's a debit card, it doesn't count. So you can actually use any debit card you want at Costco, even though it's a MasterCard. So that's a really cool thing to see with a no annual fee, obviously, debit card that, can get you 5% in groceries at Target, Walmart, and at Costco at the same time. For me personally, I even use this card for restaurants. And so I actually like what Saranya did because he uses two of them, one for him, one for his wife. And I probably will do the same thing at this point because my wife does most of the grocery shopping and I do almost none of it. So I think if I put her card as a 5% grocery card, that would be fantastic. The only issue is you have to really worry about having that $1,000, if you're spending up to that or not. But I look back to my transactions, most grocery purchases were under $1,000 for me anyways, which is fine. But I use actually for restaurants. And so what I do for this card is I actually load up $1,000 up to it each month. And I just spend on the card the whole month. And then before the month ends, I load another up to $1,000. So if I spent $100, for example, I'd put another $100 back on the card. As long as I have $1,000 in that account at all times, that's what I'm looking for. And what I really love about the restaurant category, and maybe some of you have seen this too in your neighborhoods. I live in a suburb in Southern California, and so I don't see it that often, but it's becoming increasingly common to see this credit card fee on your restaurant bill. And you guys know what I mean, especially if you live in like New York City or LA, they add this 3% fee as a credit card charge if you use a credit card. And that's becoming more and more problematic with restaurants I'm going to. But now, because I have a debit card, I don't need to pay that fee anymore. And I still get 5% cash back on restaurants. And that is just an amazing product. So I think it's good. I had a little bit of a problem starting up. I think when I first started with this card, I could only put in $100 in at a time, which was really annoying. But I think it was just like fraud protection. But after a couple of weeks, it was fine. But definitely highly recommend using this card for your credit card setup for a no annual fee option and a 5% cashback option if that's kind of your thing. Hopefully some of you guys take a look at it. Again, easy open. It's really like stress-free. It's all on the app, and go ahead and just check it out. QC Man says, damn, hopefully PayPal doesn't nerf the 5% wholesale clubs. Yeah, I hope so. They don't either. It's been out for quite some time now. It's only really gaining some traction on YouTube over the past, I would say, few months. And I wanted to really test it out first myself before I started talking about it. And so far, it's been pretty legit for restaurants. Almost all the restaurants I've been to have been fine, and they've all coded correctly at 5%. You get the cash back right away, so you can just apply it as you go if you want to. I just wait to the end of the month just to make it easier for myself, but you could, if you wanted to, apply the cash back with every transaction you do. Sosa said, that's wild. Restaurants may as well start putting their lease fee on the bills as well. Yeah, I know. This credit card fee is ridiculous. But again, I get it. As a small business owner, you have to really figure out, how to deal with things. In California, the labor laws are a little bit more stringent, so there has to be more into that in terms of costs from the business owner side. So I kind of understand, but it really does suck because that's not a fee that you used to have, and now it's there. So anyways, this is one way to get around that 3% fee, is that PayPal Debit Mastercard. QC Man says a lot of places exclude debit cards from the added fees, but some of those places also add the fee on debit cards, which is crooked. I haven't seen that before. That would be really annoying because I think like the fee on that is really capped at, I believe it's like 1% or something. So, I mean, hopefully they don't do anything like that. Kevin Wynn says PayPal Debit Mastercard it's like prepaid card. It also loopholes for the credit card fees. Yeah, I think this is a great card. So I would just get it and use it while it lasts because this is a phenomenal card. So thank you, Saranya, for mentioning that. And hopefully that answered your question. CRN Patarot says, with more common 3% credit card fees at merchants, that's a great point. Otherwise, I don't think it's worth the trouble opening a debit account for the max $50 savings per month. It's up to you. I mean, it's definitely something that's easy to do. It's not hard. And that's why I wanted to try it. It is a little bit more work because you got to make sure the debit account has enough money in it to like do the expenses you want to do. But if you can look around of that, that's okay. David Williams says, I got the 3% Chartway debit card, $10 per month max, kind of junk. That is kind of junk, actually. $10 per month max is not really, it's not really a lot. Andrew Beach says, I'm guessing the PayPal debit works at Costco because you are using debit as a MasterCard. That is absolutely correct. Like I said before, it works at Costco because it's a debit card, which is key. So if you're looking for 5% cash back at Costco, that is one way to go. And I think that's a really eye-opening thing to see. Sosa says, it's time to start paying the restaurants that do that in pennies before they stop being produced. Yeah, you can just do that. Just bring a whole gigantic bags of pennies and just pay them. Although I think our president said they want to get rid of pennies at this point. I'm not sure if that'll be around anymore. We'll see. Saranya Roy says, same 5% grocery for player 2, 5% restaurant for player 1. And he says, thank you. I appreciate that. Of course, anytime. Robert says, Walmart and Target, great 5%. Absolutely. And then Manuel Jimenez also says, I've seen some gas stations charge a fee for ATMs. I mean, most ATMs charge a fee. It depends on if you're ATM fee card issuer will reimburse them or not. But I would say most ATMs charge fees, and that's kind of a normal thing. But that does suck too. So the second question is the poll. We just had a whole discussion about this 5% card. So I want to know from your guys' perspective, what is the 5% card that's your favorite out of the following options? So again, go to menti.com and you can enter the code here on the bottom. I'll put my banner up so we can change screens here. And so I want to know between the PayPal Debit Mastercard, now that you know all about it, the Citi Custom Cash, or the Chase Freedom Flex, which card of those three is your favorite out of those? And so I'm going to start the polling here in 3, 2, 1, and here we go. So which one out of those three is now going to be your favorite? I'm going to go ahead and vote my card here. Okay. So it looks like we're still, it's pretty even actually at this point. We have PayPal debit card kind of in the lower section. Most people like the Citi Custom Cash. Now, reminder, the Citi Custom Cash is a transferable point currency card, although not by itself. It does have that opportunity to turn those 5x thank you points into something even better if you have that Citi Strata Premier card. And so that is something to think about too. It also depends on if you're cash back versus points and miles. And so that's another thing as well. It looks like a lot of people still like the Citi Custom Cash as well as the Chase Freedom Flex. And that's fine. Andrew Beach also mentions, yeah, it's not on PayPal, not a transferable currency. And that's right. You know, again, it depends if you want cash back or not. You know, I'm personally moving towards a cash back setup as I'm not really getting a lot of value from the transferable currencies yet. As I said at the very beginning of the live stream, I have a lot of Amex MRs, Chase URs already, so I don't need to get it as much. So I'd rather have the immediate value from the cashback myself. So as it says, definitely Citi Custom Cash. There is something to be said for simplicity, not having to go and activate categories or worry about transferring to PayPal balance. And you're right. It is actually the simplest one. The balance sucks, but it is a part of the process. T. Sanderson says, don't forget the rewards plus. And then Andrew Beach says, although PayPal may be my Costco card. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to start doing that too. It's something that I think is a really cool thing to see. The next question is from South EXF, and he says, hey, Stan, maybe you or Tony or both of you can answer or give me your opinion. I have the Chase Inc. Cash plus Unlimited plus Inc. Preferred and a Chase Freedom Unlimited and a Sky Miles Gold card. I was looking at getting either a CSR or Capital One Venture X. Obviously heavy in the Chase ecosystem. Do you think I should get the CSR or venture out, no pun intended, and get the Venture X? So to visualize what he's saying, this is actually what his portfolio is. Inc. Cash, Inc. Unlimited, Inc. Preferred, Chase Freedom Unlimited, Delta, Gold, Sky Miles card from Amex. And to just make it a little more clear, here's what I would assume he is actually spending on. So 5x on the supply stores and internet cable phone for the Inc. Cash, 1.5 back on the Inc. Unlimited, 3x travel on the Inc. Preferred, plus it unlocks the Chase's transfer partners, the Freedom Unlimited with 3x on dining, as well as 3x on drugstores, as well as the Delta Gold card for the benefits particularly, since it's not a really good spending card. So he has 3 business cards, 2 personal cards, mostly Chase, 1 Amex. Does he want to, is it better to get the Chase Sapphire Reserve or the Capital One Venture X? And so to kind of figure this out, I think it's important to go ahead and figure out what these 2 cards are head-to-head in his context. And so these are the 2 cards head-to-head for him. One obviously gets Chase Sapphire Lounges. One gets Capital One Lounges. One gets a good multiplier. One gets a good redemption boost and travel protections. And they both get travel protections, but I would argue that, like I said before, the Sapphire Reserve gets you better travel protections than the Capital One Venture X. So when I look at the question, in my perspective, this is a lounge question more than it is a card question. Because if you like the Chase Sapphire Lounge offerings and you're living in a close to those areas or you fly through those airports, I would go with the Chase Sapphire Reserve. If you have a lot of Capital One lounges where you're flying out of, then I would go with the Capital One Venture X. You do have more Chase cards and you're just opening up a new Capital One card. So it could go either way, but I think it's more of a lounge question than anything. So knowing that actually is important. Andrew Beach also says, may also be a groceries question. That is absolutely true too, because if we look back on his other area here, he doesn't really have any groceries set up either. And I think that's a really good point because the question was about like those 2 cards, and certainly we can improve this setup a great deal, but the actual question was about those 2 cards. So that's why I didn't focus on it, but you're absolutely right, Andrew. Groceries is absolutely one of the pain points here in this particular setup. And so from my perspective, this is what I would say for his recommendation. So assuming he prefers Sapphire Lounge access, I would say you can get the Chase Sapphire Reserve, and you don't actually need the Ink Preferred when you have a Chase Sapphire Reserve, unless you're using the Ink Preferred for like a specific business purpose. If you do that, it keeps your setup simple, because really the Ink Preferred's benefit is that 3x travel category for $95. And so if you're getting that already on the 550 Chase Sapphire Reserve, it's more of a redundant thing. And so I would not carry both cards at the same time. At least that's what I would think. I think in this way, if you keep it with Chase, your setup is still simple, which is very good. And so you don't have to add another issuer to that. Having said that, I will say that, as we all know, Capital One has these very weird approval requirements where you can't really figure out if you get approved or not. But it seems like the more credit cards that you have, the less likely you have to be approved for that card. So how do we deal with that? So if you think you're going to get the Venture X eventually, I would consider getting that card first, just so you don't get to the point where we have a lot of cards. But if you look back on the particular slide with his cards, you can see that he only has 2 personal cards. So those are the only 2 cards he has in the setup. So it's still a very low amount of cards. So I think going either for Reserve first, Venture X second, or vice versa, I think it's going to be a personal decision on his part on what he wants to do. QCman also comes around and says that workaround for groceries is using the CIC to buy gift cards. Don't need purchase protection on groceries. I hope not. I don't think so either. That is, one way is to do it is to actually go ahead and, use Ink Cash for another type of purpose to see if that would be helpful for that too.